You're listening to Thunder and Lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi, covering Mississippi State sports like nobody else. With Sports Talk Mississippi's Brian Hadad and Robbie Faulk of On3 Sports. Now get ready for Thunder and Lightning.
This is Thunder and Lightning here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Brian Hadad and Robbie Faulk here with you on a Tuesday morning. Glad to have Robbie back with us here at supertalk.fm or wherever it is that you get podcasts from. We appreciate you guys out there, our great listeners, especially our servicemen and women out there taking care of us. I want to thank our sponsors over at Strange Brew Coffee House and Churn and Spoon Ice Cream. Start your day the right way with a trip to the drive-thru over at Strange Brew Coffee House here in Starkville or at Brupolo over in Tupelo. It would be a little weird, Robbie, if Brupolo was in Abdan.
That would be weird. I've never even heard that word before.
Sounds like something that would be close to my native land.
Yes.
Yes, if you were in Abdan.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't want to make it kind of. You're perfectly fine with that.
That's right.
I didn't want to make it
you had told me that the Skandar Akbar had started Devastation Incorporated in Abdan. I'd be like, I could believe that. So
yes,
there you go.
That would be perfectly fine.
Wherever you are in our great state, you can enjoy Strange Brew Coffee each and every morning. It's only a click away. It's at strangebrewcoffeehouse.com. The Mississippi Beef Council wants to remind you that beef, it is what's for dinner. If you are cooking out this weekend, nothing beats the sizzle of beef on the grill. So put you a steak on there. Put you a tri-tip. Heck, just put some burgers on the grill, and everybody is going to be a happy camper. And if you don't want to cook burgers this weekend, guess what? I've got great news. There's a burger place near you, and I'm talking about a real local burger place serving up great cheeseburgers and probably great steaks too. I mean, I just don't know. Anywhere you go in the state of Mississippi, burgers and steaks are going to be on the menu, and you can have a great, great meal. Thanks to our Mississippi beef farmers. Beef, it's what's for dinner. Thank you to our friends at the Mississippi Beef Council. College Corner, collegecornerstore.com is the place to find the maroon and white merchandise that you're looking for. I know that you're looking for it. I know you need new gear. You know, the weather, you don't ever know what's going to be outside. One day it's cold, one day it's hot. You need to be prepared either way. You can do that with a quick trip to College Corner. Pick you up a T-shirt for when it's nice and a polo or a pullover when it's not. You're good to go. 2 locations in the Jackson area, Ridgeland by Fleet Feet, Flowwood by the Half Shell, or you can shop online, collegecornerstore.com. Restaurant Tyler, Starkville's flagship restaurant for lunch, for dinner, for Sunday brunch. The best meal in town is always the Restaurant Tyler. Our friend Sam Sklar, who stood in for you yesterday, Robbie, never been to Restaurant Tyler. We got to get him there. I told him we're going to take him there this week.
That's a good
tragedy.
He's going. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
And Sam knows good food. He enjoyed the same spots that we enjoyed in Hattiesburg.
Yeah.
So it's not like he just goes to McDonald's or whatever.
Okay. I was like, who told you where to go? And they screwed you. That should have been number one on the list.
We'll get him there. We'll get him to Two Brothers. We're going to get everything settled.
He's been to Two Brothers, so we got him there.
Okay.
We'll get him to the other spots as well. But Restaurant Tyler's got to be number one on the list. It should be number one on your list for lunch, for dinner, for Sunday brunch. When you want to eat good, you go to Restaurant Tyler. Priority One Bank, 16 locations to serve you throughout central Mississippi. Let PriorityOneBank.com be your guide and show you not only where they're located, but they're going to show you how they're going to help you invest, manage your money, and prepare for the future. Now more than ever, when you have questions about your money, you need answers. You need them on your schedule, not somebody else's. So that's why you need a bank that provides the level of service that you're going to get at Priority One Bank. Let Priority One Bank make you their priority. Glad to have you back. We missed you yesterday.
I
gave everybody the news of like this man's been working. He's been working hard.
And I hate to do that. I really do. But yesterday, I was just I was done.
Hey, the working man like Robbie.
Did you see what I was doing yesterday?
Well, you had women's basketball, you had baseball, you had,
I was doing both game threads at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was at my parents' house because we were having a baby shower for my wife. So I have to ask you this.
Okay.
Am I a bad husband because I sat in the back bedroom and did my work watching the game with 5 other men while my wife and all the women were in the living room? This is my second child.
Yeah.
This is one of like 2 or 3 baby showers. Is that frowned upon?
So
I took pictures before.
Yeah.
I unloaded all the gifts.
I have a ruling.
Was very supportive.
I have a ruling. You ready?
Okay.
If you had just been back there watching the game, you're a bad husband. But this is your job, and you're the guy who would normally be helping you. He's out sick. You're the only thing that website has going right now. You had to do that. You were completely in the right. My ruling is not guilty.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. I appreciate that. And, we got through it. I had the baseball game on my laptop. We had the basketball game up on the television screen. And it was, at one point it's like 9-2 Oklahoma State and Mississippi State women down by 7. And I'm just sitting there contemplating life. Like, why did I do this? Why am I in this position? And then when everything ended, we moved to the living room. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of my cousins are in there, and several family members who are all Mississippi State fans, huge Mississippi State fans on my mom's side. The whole family's State people. And my dad's sitting right next to me. I'm in a chair, and I think Auburn hit a 3 to cut it to 4, whatever. And I stopped everyone. I said, can I just ask? I want to ask the older people in this room, why did you pick Mississippi State? Why did you do this? You could have picked LSU. You could have picked Alabama. I said, we could be having a blast right now with LSU, eating great food, having a good time, winning in a lot of different sports. Instead, you chose Mississippi State, and this is the burden that we've all been handed. You and I, Brian, have been handed this burden that we have to live through.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. So, well,
we do. I mean, I'm happy to be here. It hurts. It hurts a lot of times, but I'm happy to be here.
They say you get your heavenly reward when your earthly reward's not that great. So, maybe we're gonna be in the penthouse.
Well, the problem is my thought process is that God cares nothing about sports. So
but we still suffer a little. He's looking out for us. I think we'll be all right.
We have to be better human beings, I believe.
Speaking of God, he may have a role to play in Mississippi State sports today. As we're recording, it's 1:23 on a Monday. They have not announced yet whether or not this game is going to be played between Mississippi State and Southern Miss for baseball. Ole Miss has already canceled for Tuesday night. The weather forecast does not look good.
Robbie, great, Bob.
Yeah, do we think this game is going to happen?
I'm kind of surprised it hadn't already been moved, or this could easily be moved to Wednesday, could it not?
I mean, you would think. I don't know for sure, but you would think.
I think you need to play it. I think it's a big game for Mississippi State. They need to play this game.
You could also play it early. You could play it 11 a.m. and be good to go,
or noon.
Yeah.
Would they do that on a Tuesday? Is the question.
Well, I mean, I get it, but you got to play these games, because we're talking about 6 o'clock. It's a thunderstorm, 60% chance of rain. It's up to 75% at 7. I just don't see this.
I don't see a way they play this at 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I kind of would prefer they move it, so I don't have to cover Mississippi State baseball and then basketball over the course of 9 hours. But
right,
I don't know. I feel like the best option is just bump it to Wednesday.
Yeah, which you would like you said, you'd think they'd be able to do that.
It feels kind of pointless to have this conversation because we know when everybody's listening to this,
it'll already have been decided.
The decision's already been made.
But that's the thing. We can only work with what we got. So what we got right now is, I guess we could discuss this, that you and I the past couple of weeks have been talking about Carson Ligon and saying, all right, they got to get something, figure that out. And I think at this point, you and I would agree that they're going to probably have to move on from him on the weekend. But I saw an interesting point on your message board. They said, look, you're playing Queens this weekend. All right, not exactly a powerhouse program. Maybe you just keep him in there this weekend and worry about it next weekend. Or do you go ahead and get everybody on the same schedule and move Pruitt to the weekend now? What's your thought process on this?
I would go ahead and move Pruitt. I don't think you can afford to put Ligon back out there. I mean, who's to say he doesn't go out there and he gives up 4 or 5 runs against Queens and you're not able to make up that difference. That's kind of the issue that you have here. I was always kind of concerned with him being a weekend starter, just because we haven't seen him handle that situation. And the stuff right now is just not playing. He's got a 96, 97 mile an hour fastball. Mm-hmm. It's not really fooling anybody right now. And the secondary stuff, we saw it some in the first game that he pitched, mm-hmm. where he got the slider and really was kind of working backwards with it and was having a lot of success, and he was keeping hitters off his fastball. Well, now the last 2 games, you don't really see that. And, I mean, he just really struggled against Arizona. I know I didn't get a chance to get my thoughts on it, but I gave it about 15 minutes of it on YouTube if anybody wants to go see it. I just thought that, we saw kind of what I've kind of feared of him. Like, we haven't seen enough of him bearing down and just getting out of trouble, or not even getting in trouble in the first place. And Stone Simmons, I still think there's something there with Stone Simmons, and I think the potential is there with him much more than it is with Carson Ligon, mm-hmm. especially from a mental standpoint. And this is a guy that's coming off 2 Tommy John surgeries, and usually what you see when those guys are coming back from that and getting back to a groove is the control is not really pinpointed yet. And mm-hmm. we've seen that a little bit with Mekhi Grant so far. I think that's what you're seeing with Stone right now, and he just doesn't really have the control and the feel just yet. But I'm not ready to give up on him. And, like, him pitching on a Sunday is not the worst option.
Right.
It's already a bullpen game. A lot of teams are only getting 1 time through the order, or, a time and a half through the order with their Sunday starter anyway. So it's just, to me, I just don't see as big of an issue there as I do with the Saturday. So I would, go all the way back to your point, I would just go ahead and throw Jacob Pruitt in there. I think that he's ready for this. I think we saw a guy that when he got his start against Troy, which I think is a very good lineup, mentally looked locked in as a starter. I thought we saw kind of that Landon Sims versus Tennessee in 2021 game. He comes in against Tennessee in the SEC tournament, and the game's out of hand, and was his worst game he pitched all year. Like, the bulk of the runs he gave up on the season came against Tennessee in that SEC tournament when the game was over. Jacob Pruitt comes in a 17-0 or 17-1 game, whatever it was. And sometimes the mentality just shifts for you and you're just not as comfortable. I thought when he came in and he was a starter the other day, he looked like a guy that was positioned for that.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's ready for it. And I think he is better suited for that role as a Saturday starter than Carson Ligon. So I would just go ahead and throw him in there now. I've seen weekend starter in Jacob Pruitt. I think I would just go ahead and give it to him.
So then who do you start if this game happens today on Tuesday? Who starts for Mississippi State in that one?
I would go, because it's probably going to be like what you usually see on Tuesday, a time through the order or a couple of times through the order, and that's been what State has done on midweeks since Lemonis has been here. I would go either Charlie Foster again, or I might even go with Ryan McPherson. I think either one of those freshmen could come in there. I mean, Foster didn't pitch great against Southern Miss the first time around, but I don't think that it's a situation where it's just going to be too big of a moment for him or anything like that. So, and I don't expect them to throw a starter for more than 3 or 4 innings anyway.
I find that interesting because I think State desperately needs to win this game if they play it. And so if Foster is rolling, I would not just make a change just for the sake of making a change, and I think. Right. No,
I'm kind of that way too. That's why I kind of wanted to see Jacob Pruitt longer than what you got against Troy. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of that way. Like, if you have a pitcher that's rolling and you feel like he can go a couple more innings, let him roll. But I don't think I would pitch Pruitt I think I would start him on the. I thought I would go ahead and start him on the weekend now and get his body ready for the SEC play that starts the very next week.
I tend to agree with you. I think if you want to make that change, go ahead and get your ducks in a row now before you don't want his first Saturday start to be in the SEC opener or the his SEC opener. I'm in agreement with you on that, and I think this game, if they can play it tomorrow or today, I guess I should say, is huge for Mississippi State. They can't be at 7-5, and it's crazy, right? You think about it. This time last year, they had 5 losses going into conference play, right? But all 5 of those losses were bad. They were teams that were not going to make the NCAA tournament. If you lose to USM today, you've got 5 losses, but you've got 5 losses to teams that are likely going to be in the NCAA tournament. Like it's so early, you can't really look at RPI. But I'd be interested to know what State's RPI is. Like they have strong losses, and their wins are very weak. And
it's like in the hundreds right now. But
yeah, it's just if they had one win over one of these quality teams, they would be probably in the top 40 in RPI right this second. So,
and what's the most frustrating about it is every single loss you can say is a Mississippi State problem. Against Southern Miss, they just didn't hit it, and I thought Southern Miss just pitched extremely well in that game. But State also, the runs they gave up were self-inflicted. They were errors, walks, whatever, pass balls. That's what happened against Southern Miss. And then you look at Troy, you dig yourself in a hole. You have 12, 13 runners left stranded, 9 of them by one guy. You easily should have won that ball game. Arizona, you have a 5-1 start in that game. You come back, you have 2nd and 3rd in the 9th inning with 1 out. You can't score anybody. And then Oklahoma State, you get down 9-2 because you didn't pitch or defend well there. Every single game that they've lost to this point is on them. And, I mean, several people tweeted at me, well, that's just how baseball works or whatever. No, this is what Mississippi State does under Chris Lemonis. This is what they have done for the last 4 years. This is who they are. They don't do the little things right. And we're constantly having these conversations because that's how it's playing out. It's not just baseball. Last year, I had mentioned a ton of times about these 1-run losses, and people were talking about, well, everybody's losing games by 1 run. But Mississippi State's losing them because of things that they do or don't do. These losses are on Mississippi State in the simple things that when you get to that level of baseball, and no, I've never played baseball before on this level, but I can look at it and tell you that it's wrong. I can look at it and tell you that these are things that shouldn't be happening. Fielding ground balls, making a throw over to first that, skips or is thrown over the first baseman's head, passed balls, wild pitches, lack of situational hitting. It's things that a lot of the best teams in the country do routinely and do it a 99% percentile, but Mississippi State can't. Mississippi State constantly loses games like this.
What's funny about State this year is, from a hitting standpoint, I think they're okay, right? Yep. They take a little while to get going, but they're putting up runs in these games. I mean, they scored 7 runs, they scored 5 runs. If they don't, and I think for the 90% of their pitching is good. It's just, Ligon was bad and Simmons had a bad start, but the defense has taken a massive step back. 23, they were a terrible defensive team. Last year, they were really, really good defensively. I think as much credit as Parker got last year, I think an underrated part of State's success was how good they were defensively. They just didn't give away a lot of runs. This year has been a train wreck defensively, and you have Garrick Fry, who you want his bat in the lineup, but he can't seem to find his way out there in the field. Ross Highfield has been a problem behind the plate, defensively, and then you compound that with the fact that he's not hitting as well as anybody else would. There's some issues. It feels like, and I was talking to Sam yesterday. He made this point. It's like it feels like they're still running preseason practice, trying to figure out the best lineups and best rotations. It's like that's what the preseason's for. That's what the fall and January for. So that when you go into February, you've got your starting 9, you've got your best 9 out there, you've got your rotation set, and you're good. It feels like State's still trying to figure things out here, and we're into March already.
And this is, like I said, this is what they do. This is, we see these problems early on. Now, 2022 and 2023, they never got it right. But last year is kind of mirroring this year. I really like a lot of the pieces on this team. Like that's kind of where I am with them, and that's the dialogue I'm having with people is like I don't see an awful team. I don't see a team that lacks talent, a team that can't go out there and beat anybody in the country. I think that this team is capable of doing that. They have the pieces in place. They have an offense that I think is very deep. I think it's going to be much more difficult to get this lineup out 1 through 9 consistently. There might be some times where they have a couple of down games or, a few bad innings or whatever, but I think those are going to be few and far between. I'm going to expect this team more often than not than have, 2 runs this inning and like 2 or 3 innings later, another couple of runs, as opposed to last year, like 7 straight innings without a run. I know we've seen that a couple times this year too, but I just think this team's going to hit better. Yeah. Now, the issue that you have here is starting pitching's not fixed yet. I think Pico Khan is going to be really good.
Yeah.
But that's 2 other spots that you've got to fill with somebody that's going to give you competitive starts. I like the bullpen a lot. There's 10 guys out of the bullpen that have given up 2 runs or less that'll play. And it's not like they've been playing Little Sisters of the Poor the whole time. This has been a good schedule so far.
Yeah.
So the bullpen to me is Mississippi State's strength. You have guys running out there that are throwing 95 to 97 that we didn't see a couple years ago. So you have more of those guys that can face SEC hitting. Now it's just about all these little things that you're not doing right. You've got to tighten it up. Defense is a huge problem for Mississippi State right now. They've got to get better there. And it's at 2 or 3 spots. Second base has been a real problem. No matter who's out there, they just haven't had anybody that's been able to lock that down. And so far, Ace Reese has been okay at third. He hasn't really gotten you beat.
Yeah.
And I took some heat on Friday talking about the fact that, when Garrett Fry was at first, you had that play where he just couldn't stretch it out and make a play at first. Hunter Hines always makes that play.
Right.
And while Hunter Hines hurts you at the plate, he steals a lot of outs over there at first base. And I'm not saying that Hunter Hines should be in the lineup over Garrett Fry. I'm just saying you got to find a way to have good defense and be able to hit. That's Mississippi State's issue is they'll put somebody in and they'll lose defense, or they'll put a defender in and they lose offense. They can't seem to find that happy medium where they're good at everything. That's kind of the issue right now.
We'll see what happens with this game. Obviously, as you're listening to it, you should have an idea. Although you and I both know, Robbie, Mississippi State famous. They'll wait till the last possible second to make a decision. So it's very possible if you're listening early Tuesday morning, a decision has not been made about that. Obviously, I will talk to Coach Lemonis on Monday's Sports Talk Mississippi. Maybe we can get a little better idea of what the plan is for Mississippi State on that one. Let's move into basketball. That's brought to you by our friends over at Two Brothers Smoked Meats in the heart of the Cotton District, the place to find smoked Southern soul food. I do so love a trip to Two Brothers Smoked Meats, and just talk to the guys at Two Brothers today. They've renewed with us, Robbie, for another year, so we are excited. I was not willing to lose that one. I would have been mad. I might have just still talked them up. I shouldn't say that to be like, oh, you do it for free. But I do love Two Brothers, so I'm glad they're going to stick around.
We have done that before for some people.
We have. We've been like, we like you enough. So, yeah. But Two Brothers Smoked Meats and the Older Brothers, that is just 2 great restaurants right there in the Cotton District. If you're in Starkville anytime soon, if you're going to be here this weekend for baseball, if you're here today for basketball, whatever it is, make a trip to Two Brothers Smoked Meats. Great products, great service. Every business likes to promise it to you. They deliver it to you at Advantage Business Systems. That's what they've been doing for 50 years.
It did, brother.
Did you hear Sam yesterday?
Did he do it?
Yeah. I paused, and he just like, is this where I say 50? I was like, that's where you say 50. He got the little weird thing, though. He knew that one.
So, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, he's a listener. He's a thunder and lightning head. Or I don't know. We got to come up with a name for our fans. I don't know what it's going to be, though. Weathermen?
The Weathermen?
That's our fans, the weathermen.
We never had anybody volunteer to be our official weatherman for Thunder and Lightning.
Well, yeah, we haven't, but we'll work on that. We got time. We'll work on that. Well, if you are working and you've got business technology problems, you need to call Advantage Business Systems today. They'll give you a quote on a great piece of equipment, give you a great price, and best of all, they're going to give you great service after the sale. Anybody can sell you a copier or a printer. Who's there for you when something goes wrong? That's who makes the difference. That's who you want to do business with. Advantage Business Systems. 601-362-9192, or you can visit them online, absms.com. Find out how Advantage Business Systems will help your business do business. Before you go to your next game in Starkville, make sure you make a trip to Maroon & Co. Maroon & Co. has all the gear you're looking for, all the logos that you want, the state script, the M over S, the interlocking. They've got it all. They've got a great selection of polos, pullovers, hats, T-shirts, jackets, whatever it is. You can get the custom-made Bell Smith cowbells there. You can get the Bulldog Initiative gear there. Everything maroon and white under one roof. And best of all, we'll save you some money when you go. Use our promo code Thunder15 to save 15% off any regular price item. Some exclusions do apply. During your next trip to Starkville, make sure you're headed to Maroon & Co. All right, basketball tonight. That's not going to get canceled, I don't think. Mississippi State hosting the Texas Longhorns. This, to my knowledge, the first trip by the Longhorns to the Humphrey Coliseum in their inaugural SEC season. Texas is an interesting team. They've kind of fallen apart here at the end of the season, and now their coach, Rodney Terry, very much on the hot seat. You know, he was the interim that they promoted after Chris Beard was arrested and then subsequently fired. Got them into the NCAA tournament that first year, but has just not been great since then, and got blown out by Georgia this past weekend. They're down to 46 in the net, so they are very much on the bubble. For them to have any chance of getting in, Robbie, a win would go a long way for them tonight. But I feel like I keep feeling, and this has been a couple of games now. I felt like this after they played Ole Miss and A&M, and I felt like this after they played South Carolina. I was like, all right, State, they're about to get rolling a little bit here. Only 2 games left, so I don't know how much rolling they can really do. But I do think that this is a game Mississippi State is in a good place right now. I think that game against LSU, the way they played in the second half, that they saw some things work, they saw some things go their way. I think they're in a good spot right now. I feel pretty confident in their ability to get this win tonight.
Yeah, and have played pretty well at home against the teams that aren't, that we would consider, contenders. When you look at the Floridas and the Bamas and Kentuckys and Missouris, whatever, they played pretty well in those ball games. And the good news is Texas just not a great 3-point shooting team. And this is every preview we have this year, it feels like, and for the rest of the year probably, is I'm going to look at what the teams do shooting the three and whether or not they do it well, and that will determine how I feel about those ball games. So that considered, I feel good about Mississippi State coming into this game. Now, they still got to go out there and they've got to execute, and you want to see this team playing its best basketball here to end the regular season. Mm-hmm. We know they're in the tournament. You don't have to sweat out Mississippi State on the bubble like we have the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. This year, you finally can sit there and say, there's no reason to worry going into the SEC tournament. You're not looking at it and saying, okay, what do we have to do to get in? You don't have to do that this year. So with that in mind, what you're looking for is playing your best basketball. You don't want to limp into March. So that's what we saw in the second half against LSU. I thought State played really well. Take that into this game and then take it into the next game at Arkansas, and we'll see where the chips fall as far as Mississippi State's seeding in the SEC tournament.
This will be senior night for the Bulldogs. To my knowledge, only one, and that is Cameron Matthews. A very interesting player when we talk about legacy, because not a guy who has a whole ton of great moments, right? He has a couple here and there, but not a guy who hit a lot of buzzer beater shots or had a 40-point game or anything like that. But if you were going to define a Bulldog, both on and off the court, a guy who was a Bulldog not only in his love for Mississippi State, but in the way he played, Cam Matthews would be that guy. Cam Matthews might be, if you said that, who are the most popular Mississippi State basketball players of all time, I think he's easily in the starting five. People love Cameron Matthews, and this will be his final go-around at the Humphrey Coliseum. Truly a great player. What's his legacy to you at Mississippi State?
One of the greatest of all time, just as far as, all-around Bulldogs. And I think you said it well. I mean, he's not going to be a guy that we look back on that's going to be, the greatest scorer or whatever. He might not even get to 1,000 career points at Mississippi State. But we have spent years talking about how do you find another Brandon Vincent?
Mm-hmm.
We've had this conversation before, but
oh yeah,
you want to find another Brandon Vincent, the guy that does all the gritty work. He does all the little things. He's your enforcer, so to speak. Cam Matthews has pushed Brandon Vincent aside in that regard, and I think a better all-around player than Brandon Vincent across the board. Mm-hmm. And that just speaks to, first of all, the legacy that Brandon Vincent left, to be talking about him 20 years later after, he was, I don't know, what he averaged, like 3-4 points a game. I mean,
not a lot, yeah.
He came in the ball game. He got you charges. He blocked shots. He got rebounds. That's what Cam Matthews does, but even on a greater scale. He's going to leave state having played in close to 170 ball games. And in the year 2025, where you have the transfer portal and guys upset with their playing time and all those things, Cam Matthews never, ever wavered on where he wanted to be. He started in 10 games in each of his first 2 seasons, and he stuck with Mississippi State. He is the last of a dying breed. You just don't see guys that come through and they wait their turn and they play out their role and they don't ever whine or complain. He's never complained about what his role is. He's never thought of himself as anything other than what his role is. And what his role is to do whatever it takes to help Mississippi State win games. And he'll leave here as one of the best of all time, just as an all-around Bulldog. He is a all-time great. He's going to be somebody that we talk about for years beyond the Brandon Vincent conversation. This guy is going to be talked about in the same conversation with some of the all-time greats because of what he did. I know a lot of people have been kind of frustrated with him this year, but he's going to have the most steals he's ever had in his career. He's going to have the most rebounds he's ever had in his career, and the most assists he's ever had in his career. So he still did a lot of things good for Mississippi State this year, and he's going to be a big reason if Mississippi State can make a run in postseason. He's going to be a big reason for it. I predict when he leaves, people will think even more highly of him than they did when he was here.
You got me to look. Brandon Vincent, for a guy we've talked about for, like you mentioned, for 20 years, 6 points and 6 rebounds a game.
And that's more than I thought.
Yeah, but at the same time, he impacted games so tremendously. It's they're different in that Matthews is a really good defender, but he impacts games more on the offensive side because he handles the ball so much. Vincent impacted more on the defensive side because he was kind of the head of the snake of that 1-3-1 that Stansbury liked to throw at opponents that gave everybody so much trouble, and Vincent was the front man on that. But you're correct. I think going forward, this generation of Bulldog fans will say, boy, what this team really needs is another Cam Matthews. And that's a really high compliment because you can always find scorers, right? You can always find somebody to fill it up. When Hubbard leaves, they'll find somebody else to average 16, 17 points a game. That's not going to be a huge issue. Can you find the guy who's willing to do all of the dirty work, play every position, play hard defense, lead? Those are the tough guys to find. So Cam Matthews will be a long time remembered Bulldog. State still sitting, I think, at 30 in the net last I looked. I actually have it pulled up right here. Yeah, still 30. They've been stuck at 30 for a few days. I really don't understand the net. I wish I had a better understanding of it because I don't understand how State and Ole Miss can have the same records and the State can have one more quad 1-2 wins than them and have beaten them twice, and Ole Miss is 2 spots ahead. I just don't.
It's because Ole Miss beat Alabama on the road.
It's legitimately, I think it's just that.
Yeah,
but that's a great.
They have the best win out of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And Ole Miss is on the verge of falling out of a quad one. Quad one win for Mississippi.
If Ole Miss loses both games this week, State's home win over Ole Miss will fall to quad 2 in all likelihood. So
yeah,
that's an interesting one.
But I just don't think it's going to hinder them too much as far as they're seeing.
Yeah. So 7:00 tip at the Hump. That's an unusual tip time.
That used to be the tip time, like on whenever it was the Wednesday night SEC games.
Yeah, and now you don't see.
Now you don't hardly see Wednesday night games.
No, you're right. So, all right, 7:00 tip off at the Hump. We'll talk about the women real quick. Win over Auburn on Sunday. You said last week you thought that would seal them up into the NCAA tournament. Today's bracketology had them in, not as a bye, not as a last four in, just in the tournament as a 9 seed. Were they to win? I think against Cal, and if they were to win, they'd play the number 1 seed. They play UCLA as the 1 seed there. Do they need to win this game against Missouri to start the SEC tournament, or are they in regardless? Do you think?
I think they're in, but you need to win this game.
Yeah.
You need to win this game to get the monkey off your back in the SEC tournament. They haven't won there since 2020, Vic Schaefer's last season. So you've had 3 different head coaches all go there and lose, and Sam has lost the first round the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time it put them in the last 4 in. The second time it put them in the last 4 or the first 4 out. So that losing that game the last 2 years has really hurt them. This year, I think it could push them back to the bubble, especially if they lose to Missouri, which would be, I think they're 62nd or something. So it wouldn't be completely damaging to the resume, but you want to beat this team and you want to have an opportunity to keep moving up the seed line. The more they win this week in Greenville, the better their odds are of moving up. And you win this game, you get Ole Miss, you somehow win that ball game and get to the quarterfinals. You're talking about trying to move into that 7 seed range at that point, I would imagine.
Avoid the 1 seeds, yeah.
Yeah, so you want to get away from this 8-9 area.
Yeah.
You don't want to play the number 1 seed on their home court in round 2. So to do that, you're going to have to win a couple of games, I think, in the SEC tournament. But you definitely want to win on Wednesday to make sure that you solidify your spot in the NCAA tournament and to kind of get this monkey off your back if you're Sam Purcell and get that first SEC tournament win.
What time on is the first game against Missouri?
5 p.m. on Wednesday.
5 p.m. on Wednesday. So okay, we will see where that takes them.
And shout out to Chris Jans and Sam Purcell.
Yeah.
3 20-win seasons in their first 3 years. I think they've really brought basketball back to being consistently good and building the culture back up. I mean, this culture had kind of gone to the wayside when Vic Schaefer left and, the men had gone back to going to the NITs. I mean, people had just kind of got tired of basketball. I think the love for basketball is coming back around, and it's nice to have both teams being successful. And that's what you see with Sam Purcell and Chris Jans.
And both teams bringing in their best recruiting classes next season. So it feels like they're moving in the right direction. All right. One more thing before we get out of here. And if you're not a wrestling fan, this is the time to turn it off because you and I have got to talk about this.
Yeah, we missed it yesterday, didn't we?
I was sad that you weren't on the show yesterday because I was going to do this. I wanted to surprise you with this, but my wife is not a pro wrestling fan. Not at all. Right. And so I was sitting there talking to her on Sunday and I was like, yeah, John Cena turned heel last night. And she just went, even she, who has no fandom, no real conception of the pro wrestling business, was surprised by this. It is, to me, it's hard to believe, but I'm going to say this because I use quotations when I say it. When I say sports, I use the quotes. That's the biggest sports story of the weekend is that John Cena turned heel. And I wasn't watching Elimination Chamber, and I got a phone call from our friend Ben Garrett, and I was like, somebody must be dead, because why else would Ben Garrett call me at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night? So I call him back. He's like, and all he said was absolute cinema. I was like, what? He's like, are you not watching The Chamber? And I was like, no. He says, John Cena just turned heel. I was like, no way. He's like, you need to watch it. So I pulled it up and I watched it. And even knowing what was happening, I was just in shock. So that's when I texted you and you were like, no, I'm behind. It's like, I'll wait. And then you tweeted something. I was like, and he's like, I can't.
I was like an hour and a half behind, and I was scrolling through Twitter, and somebody had
you can't have missed
something.
It. Yeah.
I saw it out the corner of my eye. I was like, dadgummit.
Yeah. So
but that was it. It's top 5. It might be top 5 wrestling moment ever.
It is, in my opinion, the greatest heel turn. I think it's bigger.
I don't think people can grasp this. Not like again. I realize that this is predetermined, and this is it's an act and all that stuff. But imagine your favorite character in like the one of the greatest heroes in a series that you've ever watched.
Mm-hmm.
Just pulling out a knife and stabbing one of his best friends in the chest with
imagine if in like the last season of The Sopranos with like 6 episodes to go, Tony had flipped and gone to the feds.
Yeah, he was a rat.
Imagine if, I'm trying to think, like in Game of Thrones, if Tyrion had turned on the Khaleesi and had rejoined the Lannisters. I mean, and they think about like when you watch a TV show and you have like Who Shot JR and things like that. It's like, I can't believe that I just watched this. It was perfectly done. First off, you and I have talked about AEW versus WWE, and I give full credit to WWE for storytelling and the way they use their cameras. I mean, it's really professional production.
They're amazing.
When they panned around to Cena and his face went from the smile to the scowl, I mean, that's something out of a Hollywood movie. And I love the idea of combining Cena and The Rock as this Hollywood stable. Travis Scott in there laying licks in. He really hit him, by the way. He really hit Cody Rhodes.
He pancaked Cody Rhodes in the face.
Everybody went and said something to him after, like, hey, calm down. Like, that's the other thing that gets me about this. Is like one of the top, as you said, one of the top 5 moments in the history of professional wrestling. And Travis Scott's in the ring for some reason. I have no idea.
But I loved it because he just picks up Cody Rhodes' like dying head and just slaps him in the head.
That's incredible.
But no, like you have to understand, like John Cena is the biggest babyface of all time.
Of all time. Because
we've seen Hulk Hogan when he turned, that was the biggest thing that's ever happened.
Right.
But he has surpassed Hulk Hogan in that regard. He's done like 350 Make-A-Wish or something. Yeah. This guy is every little kid's hero in America.
Not anymore.
And he kicks Cody Rhodes in the nads on national television. After he was just jumping up and down, he was so happy that Cody Rhodes said "F you" to The Rock.
So well done. But yeah, Cody Rhodes dropping the F-bomb was incredible. By the way,
it was crazy. The last 5 minutes were just absolute chaos,
absolute insanity. So
I was more surprised by that. Like I knew what.
Did you hear what McAfee said? McAfee had one of the funniest lines ever. He's like, "I just heard the most incredible thing I've ever heard in the history of things being said."
But no, like I told you the other night.
Michael Cole like legit shook. Like, John, what are you doing? No, John, don't do this. Like, it was just perfect. Perfect. I was already going to watch WrestleMania, but I'm going to watch Raw. I'm going to watch Raw tonight because I got to know. I got to know where we're going.
It's hitting. It's going. The trajectory is going back to Attitude Era.
Yeah.
In terms of popularity.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
You have The Rock, who's arguably the biggest star in the world right now, and John Cena, who's becoming even more mainstream. Mm-hmm. Now, both of those two are the faces of WrestleMania. That WrestleMania is probably going to be the most viewed WrestleMania ever.
Yeah, I think so.
And the ticket sales are going to be through the roof. They said that ticket sales were down. They were really concerned, and I think it had something to do with Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble.
Now
this might have been Rock coming in and saying, "Look, we've got to sell tickets. We've got to make this bigger because people are starting to crap on him a little bit." Because The Rock is he's the board of directors for TKO. Like he is legitimately, at the top of the food chain pretty much. He has a lot of say-so in what's going on. And I could see The Rock coming in and saying to Triple H, we got to do this, and it's genius. I've been pushing for this with John Cena for 12 years. 12 years I've wanted this guy to turn heel because I think he would be an incredible heel. And he finally did it. End of his career, but he finally did it. I can't wait to see what happens. Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited for it for sure. So we had to get that out of the way. There was no way we were going to get a podcast done without talking about that incredible moment. And
I still think that we should have a wrestling podcast. That's the only thing we do is talk wrestling.
I mean, we could probably
once a week.
We could. I thought about we should set up a Zoom call, and we'll invite everybody we know that follows wrestling in sports media. So it'd be the two of us. We'll get in Logan and Joel. Ben Garrett could join. Gerard Hamilton from Missouri. He's a big wrestling guy. We could bring him in. There's a few others for sure. And we
get this thing big enough, we get enough listeners, then we can start breaking into, maybe we can get some interviews with some people.
I'm just saying, though. We've got some connections. We'll make it happen. All right, guys. We're going to push the rumblings back a day because we got the big day of sports tomorrow, so we'll do that. Also, we're going to start our SEC spring football previews this week. It's time, starting in March. So we'll have Alabama and Arkansas this week. I got a couple interviews lined up. We'll have those for you on the podcast feed as well. For Robbie Faulk, I'm Brian Hadad. Thanks for listening to Thunder and Lightning here on Super Talk, Mississippi.